And welcome, folks, to another Mark Bishop show. You know, this one is close to my heart. More than 100 million animals a year. They're put through outdated testing. Horrible suffering and death. NIH-funded experimenters have damaged monkeys' brains, terrorized them with realistic-looking plastic snakes and spiders. And I've had the snake's plastic one, and I didn't like it, I can tell you. They've cut into the brains of barn owls, restrained them, bombarded them with flashing lights, loud noises, and on it goes, on it goes. It's absolutely shocking. Here's something even more shocking. You and I are paying for it. Well, the NIH chief, Dr. Francis Collins, is out. And now it's sink or swim for America's World Health standing. And PETA scientists are urging President Biden to appoint a new visionary NIH leader. So my guest, Dr. Katherine Roe, Chief Science Advancement and Outreach Division at PETA Laboratory Investigations Department. What are your concerns about the last decade of leadership at the National Institutes of Health, Doctor?
Well, I think you highlighted one of the key concerns. As you mentioned, there are literally tens of millions of animals being tortured and killed in U.S. laboratories each year. Yet, those animal experiments are not leading to new treatments or cures for humans. Currently in the United States, there are millions of people waiting for the new treatments and cures they desperately need for diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke, diabetes, heart disease, the list goes on and on. And the National Institutes of Health has wasted billions of dollars each year on animal tests that don't work. And right now, President Biden, has the opportunity to appoint a forward-thinking director of the National Institutes of Health who can move us away from these ineffective and cruel animal experiments and move us towards the more human-relevant research that can actually help us get the cures and treatments we all so desperately need.
Well, this is right. And the NIH director, Francis Collins, he's stepping down. She's stepping down after 12 years at the top of the world's largest funder of research. And on December the 9th, HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra, he announced that Dr. Lawrence Tabak is to be the interim director. And he's going to hold that position until President Biden nominates and the Senate approves a new director. So this is what Dr. Roe is on about. Look, you are Chief of Science Advancement and Outreach in PETA's Laboratory Investigations Department. The importance of this leadership, there's just, you can't express enough, can you?
Absolutely. It is a critical decision for everybody in the United States because, again, whoever President Biden chooses to lead the NIH is going to shape how billions and billions of taxpayer dollars are invested in research. Right now, the NIH, which is the largest funder of biomedical research in the world, is wasting half of its annual budget on failing animal models. So we need President Biden to appoint someone who is willing to make the big changes necessary to move us away from these ineffective animal experiments and start investing our money, taxpayer money, into research that we know is going to work.
Well, what you're saying, Dr. Roe, is that NIH has squandered $178 billion, according to the research I've got here, over 10 years. Only 10 years, $178 billion. Good Lord. Experiments on beagles, monkeys, rats, other animals that consistently, and this is the important part, consistently fail to lead to need treatments or cures for humans. And you say that under Collins, NIH spent more than half its research budget on animal experiments that have been much criticized, in fact, by scientists inside and outside the agency. And even though 90% of this basic research never leads to treatments, vaccines, or cures in a time God knows when we need all the help we can get for every human on the planet, and a staggering 95% of new drugs that test safe and effective in other species fail in human clinical trials. I mean, what about Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, and on it goes, eh, Doctor?
Yeah, well, and those failure rates for some of the diseases you just mentioned are even higher than 95%. You know, our attempts to develop an HIV vaccine or to develop new treatments for stroke or sepsis are at 100%. And for things like Alzheimer's disease, it's nearly 100%. And yet we're spending billions and billions of dollars doing research into these diseases. But as you said, half of that money is going into animal models that fail. And under Director Collins, nothing has changed. There has been no substantial movement from the NIH to move away from the animal models they know are failing and to reinvest money into the research methods that are better equipped to get us the answers we need. And that, again, that is why who President Biden chooses to lead the largest funder of biomedical research in the world is absolutely critical. He needs to pick somebody who is going to move us away from ineffective research and, again, get us the health advances we need.
Well, on that topic, how does the process of choosing the new director of the NIH work?
Well, President Biden himself will appoint a new NIH leader, and then the Senate will confirm that appointee. Now, I would imagine that President Biden will consult with various scientists and other scientific leaders in the United States before making his choice. But again, who he chooses will have a enormous effect on the outcome of the research that gets conducted in the U.S. So people listening should try to contact President Biden and make their voices heard. And we actually have a couple of things that people can do if they're interested in helping us get the right person in this key position for human health.
Well,
people can go. Oh,
no, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to tell your listeners that people can go to PETA.org/Biden and send a quick email to the White House, or they can even just use their phone and text the word Biden, Biden, to 73822. Because again, all of our lives depend on this. You know, this is, again, how we're going to invest billions of taxpayer money with the goal of getting human advances for health. And if we keep investing money in failing animal experiments, we are never going to get those advancements.
What I was going to ask you was, is there a representative of PETA at all invited into the discussions? I mean, does the president invite anybody from PETA to hear that side of the story?
They haven't yet. Now, of course, we have written to President Biden himself, as well as the Office of Technology and Science Policy at NIH, and we have met with many members of Congress who, of course, are key in the decision-making. But no, as of yet, nobody has reached out to PETA to ask for our advice. We will give it if they ask, I promise.
Well, Dr. Roe, in the closing time, the short minute that we have left, what would a visionary candidate look like? What should he or she do to correct the course of research in America?
Well, ideally, he or she would embrace PETA's research modernization deal, which is a very common sense, evidence-based phase-out plan. But what's in that deal, and what we would like the new NIH director to do, would be to stop funding animal experiments that don't work. We know that for areas of research like Alzheimer's, sepsis, stroke, HIV, these animal models are failing. To make sure that if they're investing in animal models, they're actually going to work, and reinvest all of the wasted billions of dollars each year going into these failing animal models into human relevant research. So we need somebody who's willing to make changes, necessary changes, who's willing to stand up to the biomedical research community and say, look, we're not getting the health advances that we promised the American people. We need to change things up a little bit. You know, somebody who's willing to stand up for what's right. You know, a real leader. A real leader.
Well, even more quickly, can you share, in case people say that, you know, I sort of agree, but what else can we do? What else can, you know, how else do we find out the cures and so on? So quickly, Katherine, what are some of the non-animal approaches to this current research that you'd like to see?
There are, fortunately, there are so many non-animal methods. And the key here is that we need human-based research methods, and we have them. So, you know, some of the simpler things that people are probably already familiar with are non-invasive research with humans, and that can include anything from using the variety of imaging tools that are available, but also now we have three-dimensional models that are based on human biology. Human cells are taken and then turned into organoids, brain organoids, heart organoids, and people can study actual human biology and disease pathology and drug reactivity in those models. You know, anything that is human-based is much more likely to lead to treatments and cures for humans. And again, there's a whole menu of tools available. And unfortunately, they're unfunded because we keep funding animal experiments that don't work.
Right.
If we could reinvest that money, we would get ourselves a lot further along in terms of science and health advancement.
Well, then Biden and the boys have got to, and ladies and everybody else in there have got to listen and do something about it. So, folks, you can vote. Yeah, you can do something about this. There's a couple of ways. www, if you're online, .peta.org/Biden, Biden. And the other one is text, BIDEN, Biden 73822. Is that about it, Dr. Roe?
Yep, that is it. Absolutely. And again, please have your voices heard because this not only affects animals, it affects you.
Thank you. Dr. Katherine Roe, ladies and gentlemen, she's Chief Science Advancement and Outreach Division at PETA Laboratory. And what a cause. Thank you, Dr. Roe. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much.